Before diving into this incredible story, remember to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. Here, every story has something to say, and you won't want to miss a single one. Emily Collins, a kind and generous young woman, walked to work every morning through the bustling streets of New York. That day, her purse barely contained her lunch, a simple sandwich she had made herself. As she stepped onto the subway, she noticed a man sitting on the sidewalk, looking exhausted and hungry. His clothes were dirty and torn, but his eyes reflected a humanity that Emily couldn't ignore. Without hesitation, she knelt down and handed him her sandwich. The man looked at her, astonished, then murmured, "Thank you. God bless you." Emily smiled, felt a gentle warmth fill her heart, and continued her day without imagining that this simple gesture would change her life. 3 days later, as Emily was getting ready for a quiet evening at home, there was a knock at her door. She expected to see a delivery person or a neighbor, but not what she found. An elegant man, dressed in a tailored suit, stood before her with an unsettling smile. His eyes shone with an intensity that sent a shiver down Emily's spine. "Hello, Miss Collins. I believe you helped me a few days ago." The man's voice was deep, confident, and carried a mysterious promise. Emily felt her heart race. Who was this man? And why was he standing there at her door, seemingly knowing a secret that only a miracle could explain? At that precise moment, Emily understood that her act of kindness, however simple, had just changed the course of her life forever. Emily stood frozen in front of the door, unable to speak. The elegant man standing before her was no ordinary stranger. He exuded an aura of power and mystery. After a moment of heavy silence, he took out a small leather notebook and placed it on his living room table. "My name is Alexander Pierce," he said calmly. "You gave me a sandwich 3 days ago. That gesture. I will never forget it." Emily shook her head in confusion. "You're the homeless person?" she asked incredulously. Alexander smiled, almost amused. "No. You saw me at a moment when I was invisible to everyone. But that was only a part of me." He then explained that he was a millionaire, but that he sometimes chose to mingle incognito with ordinary life to test people's generosity and authenticity. "Very few people offer something without expecting anything in return," he said. "You did. And that's rare." Emily felt a mixture of astonishment and disbelief. It all seemed unreal. "Why me?" she whispered. Alexander leaned forward slightly and replied, "Because you have shown what many have forgotten, true kindness. And sometimes, kindness deserves to be rewarded, in ways that are never expected." Before Emily could react, he took an envelope out of his pocket and placed it on the table. "Open it," he said simply. Trembling, she took the envelope and opened it. Inside was a finely engraved metal key and a small card with an address: "Come here tomorrow morning. Everything you discover will be your choice." Emily remained silent, her heart pounding wildly. She then understood that her life had just changed forever, and that a simple act of kindness had propelled her into a world she could never have imagined. The next morning, Emily woke up still in shock. The key in her hand gleamed in the sunlight filtering through the window. Her mind raced. Why had Alexander Pierce chosen her? And what did this mysterious address mean? After a moment of hesitation, she decided to follow her instincts. She took a taxi and gave the address to the driver. The ride seemed to last forever. The buildings of Manhattan flashed by, but her heart beat faster at every street corner. Finally, the taxi stopped in front of an old Victorian-style building, surrounded by high stone walls and an imposing wrought-iron gate. Emily got out, clutching the key tightly in her hand. The place seemed deserted, silent, almost unreal. As she walked towards the front door, it opened by itself. A soft but firm voice echoed from inside, "Come in, Emily. We've been expecting you." Inside, she discovered a sumptuous hall, tastefully decorated, where every detail spoke of a discreet yet imposing wealth. Antique paintings, delicate sculptures, and an immense library filled the room. And there, in the center, Alexander awaited her, as if he knew exactly when she would arrive. Welcome, he said with an enigmatic smile. This place is not just my home. It's an opportunity. A chance for those who have shown what few possess, kindness. Emily felt a shiver run down her spine. An opportunity for what exactly? She asked, her voice trembling. Alexander approached and took out a small wooden box. He opened it carefully, revealing a shimmering object, an antique watch adorned with precious stones. This watch, he explained, belonged to my father. It symbolizes time and choices. I offer you a choice, Emily: continue your life as it is, or enter a world where your acts of kindness can change the lives of thousands of people. Emily remained silent. Anxiety, excitement, and disbelief swirled within her. She understood that this moment, this choice, would determine everything that followed. And, for the first time, she felt that her ordinary life had just vanished forever. Emily remained motionless, her gaze fixed on the watch. Every detail seemed laden with history and meaning. She felt the weight of the choice Alexander had just presented her with. Continue her simple, safe life, or plunge into a world she didn't yet understand. Emily, Alexander said softly, I'm not asking for an immediate decision. But know this, some opportunities only come once. Emily took a deep breath. Her mind replayed the moment she had handed her sandwich to the homeless man. That simple, pure gesture had set in motion a chain of events she could never have imagined. Perhaps courage and kindness did come at a price, but a price worth paying. Finally, she took a step forward and picked up the watch. I choose to know, she murmured. Alexander smiled, a mixture of pride and satisfaction in his eyes. Very well. Now let me show you something no one else has ever seen. He led Emily through a corridor hidden behind a bookcase. The wall opened to reveal a private elevator descending deep beneath the building. The ride was silent, but the oppressive and mysterious atmosphere made Emily's heart beat even faster. The elevator stopped and the doors opened onto a vast, modern laboratory filled with screens, maps, and documents. Dozens of staff members were working on large-scale humanitarian projects, initiatives for education, health, and support for the most vulnerable. Emily then understood the scope of the project. Alexander wasn't just an eccentric millionaire, he was using his fortune to change the world. Everyone here was chosen, Alexander explained. But you, Emily, were chosen for your heart, not your skills. You have shown that true goodness still exists. And now you can be a part of something bigger than yourself. Emily felt a mixture of fear and excitement. She had just entered a world she had never imagined. A world where her choices, even small ones, could save lives and transform the future. But deep down, one question remained: why her, among so many millions of people? And what sacrifice would be required to follow this extraordinary path? Emily spent the first few hours in the lab, watching the staff work with precision and determination. Every screen displayed statistics, maps, and reports from humanitarian missions. Emily's heart was pounding, she felt both fascinated and intimidated. Alexander approached and placed a light hand on her shoulder. You are ready for your first challenge, he said. It won't be easy, and it won't just be a test of skills. It will be a test of heart. He led Emily into a secluded room, where a video awaited her. On the screen, a remote village in Africa was shown, ravaged by famine and a lack of clean water. Starving children, desperate families. Emily felt a lump form in her throat. Your mission, Alexander explained, is to find a quick and effective solution to bring clean drinking water to this village. You only have 48 hours before the situation becomes critical. You can use all the resources here, but time is your enemy. Emily felt the weight of responsibility crash down upon her. She had never led a humanitarian project, nor made decisions that could save lives. But something inside her was bubbling, she knew she couldn't back down. While she analyzed the data and sketched out plans, Alexander watched silently. You have what many don't, the ability to feel the pain of others and turn that empathy into action, he said. But the real challenge will be staying true to yourself when the pressure becomes unbearable. Emily spent the entire night working, coordinating with the teams, testing solutions for delivering water and training residents in purification. The hours seemed endless, but she didn't want to fail. At dawn, as she watched the first satellite images showing the first water trucks arriving in the village, Emily felt a wave of relief and pride. She had just completed her first challenge, but she knew it was only the beginning. As she left the room, Alexander was waiting for her with an enigmatic smile. "Very well, Emily. You've passed your first test. But know this, every challenge to come will be more complicated, and more personal." Emily then understood that her life had just changed forever. This mysterious world she had just joined made no room for hesitation, but for courage, determination, and heart. A few days after her first success, Emily found herself facing a dilemma she had never imagined. Alexander had summoned her to his private office, a simple but imposing room with a large bay window overlooking the city. "Emily," he began in a grave voice, "you have proven that you have courage and compassion. But the real test is not just about the ability to act. It is about the choices you will make when there is no perfect solution." 2 files lay on his desk. The first concerned a family whose house had been destroyed by fire. The second described a project that would save an entire village from imminent disaster, but at the cost of not helping this family. Emily felt her heart sink. Every option had real and painful consequences. Helping the family meant condemning the village. Helping the village meant betraying her own compassion for just one family. She spent hours reflecting, analyzing information, and speaking with the teams about the implications of each decision. Tears sometimes streamed down her cheeks, but she knew this wasn't an exercise. These lives were real. Finally, she made a bold decision. She combined resources. She mobilized a team to save the family while simultaneously finding a creative solution to protect the village. It was a race against time, a series of quick decisions and delicate compromises. When the final report arrived, indicating that the family had been rescued and that the village was now safe thanks to innovative measures implemented by Emily and her team, she felt immense relief. But Alexander, standing in the shadows of the desk, didn't smile immediately. "You have succeeded," he said finally. "But know that every time you act out of kindness, the world will test you. Sometimes you will win. Sometimes, you will have to accept the pain of difficult choices." Emily understood that her journey was only just beginning. The real mission was not just to save lives, but to keep her humanity intact in the face of injustice, pain, and responsibility. As she left the office, she felt a new strength within her, the conviction that even in the most impossible choices, kindness and determination could pave a way. A few days later, Emily was immersed in preparing a new large-scale humanitarian project, providing access to education for hundreds of children in a remote region. She was working tirelessly, coordinating teams and checking every detail, when an urgent alert appeared on one of the laboratory screens. A violent storm was approaching the targeted region. Roads were flooded, bridges damaged, and transporting supplies was becoming nearly impossible. Emily felt a shiver of anxiety run down her spine. All their preparations risked being wiped out. Alexander entered the room, his face grave. "Emily, this mission will be your toughest test yet," he said. "Nature can be unforgiving. You'll have to improvise and keep a cool head." Without wasting any time, Emily mobilized the teams to find alternatives, helicopters to transport equipment, rerouted roads, and local solutions to protect children and teachers. Every decision was critical, every second counted. As the storm reached its peak, Emily went into the field with a small team to oversee the operation. The driving rain, fierce winds, and mud made every step a challenge. At one point, a flash flood threatened to block the convoy's path. Emily didn't hesitate. She guided the vehicles along detours, taking risks that many would have considered reckless. After hours of battling the elements, the supplies finally arrived in the village. The children were able to access the temporary classrooms, and the teachers began organizing lessons despite the difficult conditions. Emily felt a mixture of exhaustion and intense satisfaction. She had transformed an impending disaster into a success, thanks to her determination and swift action. Alexander joined her once the operation was over. You have shown something rare, he said, his voice filled with respect. You are not only generous, Emily, you are able to transform the impossible into the possible. Soaked and exhausted, Emily realized that her courage had just reached a new level. But deep down, she felt that every victory in this extraordinary world would now be accompanied by even more unpredictable and personal dangers. A few weeks after the storm, Emily felt increasingly integrated into Alexander's team. She had earned everyone's respect thanks to her courage and compassion. But what she didn't know was that, behind the scenes, some people doubted her abilities, and harbored jealousy. One morning, while checking the final preparations for a medical aid project in a remote area, she received an alarming message: some of the vital supplies had been diverted. Without them, the residents risked never receiving the necessary medication in time. Emily felt her heart sink. Who could do such a thing? She gathered her team and began a discreet investigation. The clues led her to one of the field coordinators, a charismatic but ambitious man named Marcus. Emily had always believed him to be an ally, but the evidence was overwhelming. Marcus had tried to divert resources for his own personal gain, ignoring the danger to the local population. Emily faced a huge dilemma. Confronting Marcus directly risked creating conflict within the team, but ignoring his actions would have disastrous consequences. After a few moments of reflection, she made a bold decision. She confronted Marcus in private. "I know what you did," she said firmly, looking him straight in the eye. "You can claim it was for yourself, but lives are at stake. You must fix your mistake now, or I'll alert Alexander." Marcus sneered confidently. "You can't scare me, Emily. You have no authority here." But Emily didn't back down. Calmly and resolutely, she showed Marcus that she had gathered all the evidence and had already prepared a plan to secure the remaining resources. Faced with her resolve, Marcus relented. Together, they rectified the situation and managed to deliver the medication on time. Later, Alexander congratulated her. "Emily, you have shown that true strength lies not only in courage or kindness, but also in the ability to confront betrayal with intelligence and integrity." Emily then understood that in this world, enemies could hide among allies, and that kindness alone was not enough. Discernment and courage were also needed to protect those who depended on it. After Marcus's betrayal, Emily felt a strange weariness, but she was also determined to continue her missions. However, an unexpected event would shatter not only her perception of the project, but also of the man who had chosen her. One evening, as she was finishing filing documents in the main office, she noticed a slightly ajar drawer that Alexander had forgotten to close. Out of curiosity and without thinking, she opened it. Inside was a personal file, labeled with Alexander's own name. Emily flipped through the pages and discovered a secret Alexander had carefully hidden from everyone. Before becoming the billionaire philanthropist she knew, Alexander had lost his sister in tragic circumstances, and he had dedicated his life to righting wrongs and helping the innocent to atone for what he saw as his own failure to protect her. Emily's emotions were mixed: admiration, surprise, but also concern. She understood that this entire project, this wealth and power, had been born from the personal pain of one man, and that behind the facade of confidence and charisma hid immense loneliness and deep guilt. The next day, Emily confronted Alexander. "Why have you never told me about your sister?" she asked gently but firmly. Alexander lowered his gaze, a wave of sadness crossing his face. "Because I didn't want my pain to influence my choices or make you doubt the mission," he said slowly. "Everyone here must act for the good, not out of compassion for me, but for others. But I wanted to show you that even I, with all my wealth, am still human." Emily felt her heart clench. This secret transformed her perception of Alexander. He was not just a mentor or an eccentric millionaire, but a man marked by loss, who transformed his pain into action to save lives. At that moment, Emily understood that her mission went beyond humanitarian projects. It also involved a deep human connection, an understanding of the motivations and suffering of those she was working with. And this revelation would prepare her for even more intense challenges, where heart and mind would be put to the test. A few weeks after discovering Alexander's secret, Emily had gained confidence and experience. She was now leading several large-scale humanitarian projects. But a new challenge would confront her with a moral dilemma of an intensity she had never known. Alexander called her into his office and placed 2 envelopes in front of her. "Emily, this is the most difficult test I have ever given anyone." The first envelope contained information about a struggling children's hospital on the verge of running out of critical medical supplies. The second envelope detailed a mission to rescue hundreds of refugees trapped in a conflict zone. But there was a problem: their limited resources wouldn't be enough to complete both missions simultaneously. Emily felt an oppressive tension. Every option involved putting lives at risk. She knew that whatever her decision, irreversible consequences would follow. She spent the night thinking, studying the data, consulting her team, but no easy compromise presented itself. Every solution involved sacrifices. She felt cornered, torn between logic and compassion. Ultimately, Emily made a bold and unexpected decision: she combined strategy and innovation. Rather than choosing between the hospital and the refugees, she devised a risky but ingenious plan, using drones to deliver medical supplies to the hospital while mobile teams guided the refugees to a safe haven. The following hours were a whirlwind of tension and suspense. Emily coordinated the teams remotely, anticipating every unforeseen event, every potential obstacle. Her heart was pounding, but she never backed down. When the first images confirmed that the children in the hospital were receiving their medication and that the refugees were safe, Emily felt a mixture of exhaustion and triumph. She had accomplished the impossible. Alexander, observing the scene from a distance, approached and placed a hand on her shoulder. "You transformed what seemed impossible into reality, Emily. But remember, in this world, every victory brings new challenges, and sometimes, the price to pay will be personal." Emily then understood that her journey was not just a philanthropic adventure, it was a path where every decision could change lives, and where courage and kindness must always overcome fear and doubt. A few months had passed since Emily had joined Alexander and his humanitarian project. Each challenge, each mission had forged her courage and her heart, but the greatest test was yet to come. One morning, Alexander summoned her to the large laboratory room. His eyes shone with an unusual intensity. "Emily, it's time to show you why I chose you in the first place," he said. He led Emily to a secret room where dozens of families, children and adults, were waiting. All had been directly helped by Emily's actions over the past few months. Their faces shone with gratitude and hope. Some held letters and drawings addressed to Emily. "Every life you have touched," Alexander explained, "testifies that kindness, even in a difficult world, creates an immense impact. You haven't just saved lives, you have inspired lasting change." Emily felt tears welling up. She realized that every difficult decision, every sacrifice, and every moment of doubt had contributed to this moment. The girl who had simply given a sandwich to a homeless person a few weeks earlier had now changed hundreds of lives. Alexander approached and handed her a small box. Inside was a heart-shaped pendant, engraved with their initials and a message, "For Emily, whose heart lit up the world." "This isn't a gift for me," he said with a smile. "It's a symbol of what you represent: courage, kindness, and determination. This world needs people like you." Emily clutched the pendant to her chest, a mixture of gratitude, emotion, and pride washing over her. She understood then that her life had changed forever, not by chance, but by the power of her acts of kindness. As she looked around at the smiles and shining eyes of those she had helped, Emily knew her adventure was only just beginning. Every act of kindness, no matter how small, could set off a chain of unexpected miracles. And sometimes, a simple sandwich given to a stranger could open the doors to an extraordinary world.